Has anyone got any their social security cards with them or with them? Just any documents?
Got like credit cards or
Credit
driver's
cards,
license or anything like that. Anything that has your identification on it, you take it out and have a look.
Your name should be in all capital letters, and if it's not, something weird going on.
But it's not. What have you got? What's it say on it? Your name, is it Mr. or?
Yeah, is it a Mr. as well?
What you're holding in your hand, that's your straw man.
That is your straw
That's
man.
your person in your hand. And this is what they're tricking us to do, is say that saying that we are that, and therefore all of their rules apply to us, the men and women, but it only applies to corporate entities, which is what they're holding. And if anybody has a driver's license, if you look at the back of it, has anyone got one there? If you look at the back of the driver's license, next time you get one, as Harry was saying, where you sign, this is very interesting, where you sign your organs over, you assume that you're signing it over to the hospital or for somebody who's going to need them. But where you sign that line, you need a magnifying glass to see this. The actual line where you sign, if you look at that magnifying glass, it says the Department of Local Health and the Environment, something to that effect. So essentially what you're doing is, unknowingly, because you're not reading the fine print, because it's that fine, essentially what you're doing is you're signing over your organs to this company, the Department of Health and Environment, which is actually a company, and then they can now make profit in any way, shape or form off the organs that you thought you were donating to help somebody. You know?
Is that a strip design, or is it actually on the...
It's the border just around the box. You really have to look close. You need more than
It's not where you actually sign it. Your signature isn't on it. You have an option to sign it.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Oh, you also, your driver's license as well, you don't actually sign your driver's license. They cut out a signature and put it on themselves of yours. That would, if you would sign a document before, they'd cut that out and actually stick it on.
So are you bound to it?
You're not bound to it then.
You never saw
Someone else, it's someone else's liability.
Is that not from your application form that they take that?
Yeah. But did you sign the document?
Did you sign the actual driver's license?
If I had your signature and cut it out, if I had your signature and put it on a loan application and cut it out, it's the same thing.
It's like extortion, isn't it, or perjury?
See, there's a lot of things that we would talk about that we don't know the answers to ourselves. For example, on the birth certificate, do you have yours there? On the birth
Yeah, I've got my
certificate,
birth. If anyone wants to take a look at the old birth
it says
certificate,
invalid, but it's hidden from the naked eye. But
basically
it's the
you can
biggest
actually
line on
never
the page.
ever get. You go through a hard process to actually get your original birth cert bond. The ones you actually get now, they're actually invalid, actually written on it just there. It's the largest writing on it, but it's the hardest writing to see in the whole thing. You have to hold it up to the light to see it. And you'll also notice as well, when you hold it to the light, there's four crests around here as well, and there's micro writing on your birth cert as well, which is, it says property of the General Register. It says GRO on it, and that's the General Registry's office. So it's basically, it's their property, and they're another corporation, but they're still dealing with the legal fiction anyway. So, and as I was saying, with the driver's license and organ donor cards and stuff like that, you can show you to sign it in a certain way, so it's got nothing to do with you, and it's only got something to do with your straw man. And I think we'll go on to that soon enough now, actually.
Question in regards to we see the language, we read the language, person in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Citizen.
Constitution is actually the contract for the state.
So, is that a cooperative or corporations?
It's their charter, basically.
Their charter.
Yeah.
It's their customer charter or
A
whatever.
citizen is a person, not a human being.
Citizen is a person as
So
well,
I
yeah.
want to disassociate myself from.
As I said, it's completely. And if you say
I
you're.
can only vote as a citizen.
Sorry?
I can only vote as a citizen.
Yeah, but if you're voting, that means you're accepting the terms of the corporation as well.
Yeah.
You got to get your way out of it somehow. They'll get you into it somehow. Like.
Even the word citizen is an admiralty term as well, because you are on the citizenship.
So there's,
You know,
yeah,
so-
if there's ship at the end of any word, it's got to do with the commercial admiralty terms basically as well.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
what up here is really a business charter. It doesn't mean
That's it. Basically,
doesn't really mean much.
what you can do actually with the Constitution is that we didn't sign it. Everyone that signed the Constitution is dead. So it's got nothing to do with us whatsoever, the people. we actually accept it by our acquiescence, by our silence, by just ignoring it that it's there, and we just think that it applies to us. But it only applies to us by our acquiescence. If you want to accept the Constitution, what you do is you get a Constitution and you actually say, I would like this contract, and you write your name, you give your date of birth, you sign it in the right ways, and you send it back in. But if you know that the Constitution doesn't apply to you, what you do is just write no contract on it, sign your name and date it, and send it back.
So just moving on to the law, there's nothing else over here. Essentially every country, if you can go back in your mind maybe to when Ireland was still in its native way, but every land has their own set of laws, tribal law or native law. Ireland's native law is Brehon law. This is the law that in the Constitution, when they say you have rights that are higher and more ancient than any human statute, that's what they're talking about, is the Brehon law. But because we were occupied, common law is actually, it is in use today, but it's actually a remnant of the British system. But essentially, the law of the land is the law of the culture of the people on that land. And you could go to a different land, different country, and there may be a slightly different law. But ultimately, all of these native laws are common law, all these laws of the land, they ultimately have the same tenets, which is harm none. It can be summed up in those two words, harm none, which can then be broken down into don't cause loss, harm, injury, and don't be fraudulent in your contracts. That's it. If you can live your life like that, then you do not need to worry about the police knocking on your door. They've no reason to come near you, you know.
The thing is, you have to, and since in the system we live in now, you actually have to claim these rights and these laws, so they apply to you. And we'll show you how you can do that as well if you want to do it.
That's
So,
the assumption that you're a person, because the legal world works on a lot of assumptions as well.
oh, completely, yeah.
Right, completely, yeah.
Yeah.
So like you have the law of the land, and the people live peacefully on the land. And then you also have the law of merchants, which exists out at sea. And the way I look at it is, you know, this global corporatocracy that's going on now, it's the same empire again and again. It's the Roman Empire, rears its head, a different name. And what they've done this time is, using the Admiralty law, they've kind of gone in stealth to all of these countries. Anywhere where this law system exists is in the pocket of these bankers. So when they're enforcing what they call statutes, we'll explain what that is now in a moment, legislation or acts, what they're doing is they're actually rolling out a term of a contract, so to speak, or they're rolling out a law or a regulation that applies only to a corporation or a fictional entity, a corporate body. So statutes are legislative acts of a society. And that's real key as well, because we get into what a society is. Now, and a statute has the formal written agreement which has the force of law. So what gives it the force of law? Our acceptance of it is the only thing that gives it the force of law.
Us basically consenting to it gives it the force of law.
It's like the government decide to make up a new rule, that only has power when you say, I agree with that, I'll be underneath that rule, I will understand that law.